time to invite John Stuart Reid. I think Tipi
I
asked
think
him.
that who's watched the movie
Mm-hmm.
know that one of the most beautiful experiment there was the one with the blood and the singing of Anders.
So we wanted to see if there was anything he could learn from our broadcast on International Peace Day.
And Tippy didn't want to tell us what you're gonna tell us about this
There's a
experiment.
surprise
Okay, that
coming.
surprise we are waiting all
We
this
are
evening. She
really
said, "Gonna wait,
patient.
you're gonna wait. When John gonna speak, you know what."
It's very kind of you. Thank you
Welcome.
so much. It's a really wonderful pleasure and honor to be with you all this evening. And I thought I would begin just by sharing a hypothesis of mine. Many of you have been saying this evening is how extraordinary it is that you can be thousands of miles apart and yet still have this impact on matter through consciousness. And my hypothesis is really simple. When you have a thought, you have an intention via your consciousness, what happens is your brain and your heart, of course, are intimately connected and speaking to each other all of the time. And we know that the heart field is the most powerful electromagnetic field that the body produces. The brain produces electromagnetism, of course, but very, very tiny amounts. And so do all the cells in your body, but again, very tiny amounts. But your heart field is actually pretty powerful. So when you have a thought, you have an intention, what happens is your heart field becomes modulated by those thoughts, by those intentions or prayers, whatever, right? Now, we know through the work of scientists that work with the magnetic field of the Earth, that the magnetic field of the Earth is not entirely static. It has micro pulsations that you probably will know of as the Schumann cavity resonance. These are little tiny modulations of the Earth's magnetic field. So my hypothesis is simply this, that when you have a collective intention, so thousands of people, as you have done through your various experiments, and Lynn has conducted many times, what happens is all of these people are having a collective intention that is modulating their quite powerful heart fields. So the electromagnetism of the hearts of all these thousands of people is actually modulating the Earth's magnetic field. This is why distance doesn't matter, because the Earth's magnetic field, anything that you modulate in that field immediately becomes enveloped in the whole of the Earth. And literally every person on the Earth will receive that energy. Now, where do they receive the energy? Well, probably primarily through their brain. Now, we know that the skull is it's very, very good at preventing electromagnetism escaping from our heads. This is why it's extremely difficult to measure EEGs, without actual contact. However, what needs to be taken into consideration here is that the eyes and the ears and the mouth are completely transparent to electromagnetism. So all these little tiny modulations that I'm talking about in the Earth's magnetic field are literally entering into our brain through the mouth, through the ears, through the eyes, and so on. So that's my hypothesis in a nutshell. Anyway, but now I'm very excited to share with you what happened in relation to the new experiment. And this occurred because CP had this idea of somehow involving the CymaScope instrument in this wonderful experiment that Lynn had organized with CP, in collaboration with CP. So I put my thinking cap on, how could we use the CymaScope to test whether there was any significant effect from before the meditation, then during the meditation, and then after the meditation. And when I put my thinking cap on, I thought about the work that we have been doing with Times Square. Some of you may know that the CymaScope imagery has been shown in Times Square quite recently. In fact, it's still showing and that consists of poetry made visible. And this is a tribute actually to all the health workers in New York City. The reason I'm mentioning this is because when I was thinking about how could we involve the CymaScope instrument in this particular experiment, I realized that we can make speech visible. And then I thought of Lynn's words during the pre-meditation session and during the meditation and then after. And so what I thought we would do, just as an experiment, was to make Lynn's speech visible, remembering that Lynn's speech is being influenced actually by the field, by the collective consciousness of thousands of people who are all taking part or were taking part in that experiment. And because I've never done this before, we've made speech visible many times with the CymaScope instrument. So just to tell you before we show you the results, this is the CymaScope instrument behind me. And if you have a look here, this is the tiny little cuvette. It's made of fused quartz. And this is a very small volume of water that we put into the instrument. And what we're doing with the instrument is to make sound visible. Literally, we are imprinting sound onto the surface and subsurface of the water in the instrument, and then photographing it with a conventional camera. So what I did was CP very kindly sent me the whole transcript of Lynn's words, both before the meditation, during the meditation, and then after, okay? And I was really, really surprised by the results. So we're going to show you a short video, and just to describe what you're going to see in this video. I tested, first of all, the word intention. So Lynn says the word intention actually several times. She says it in the, before the meditation begins. I chose one particular version of Lynn saying this word intention before the meditation began. And then somewhere in the middle of the meditation, Lynn says a few more words. And again, she utters this word intention, right? And then again, at the very end of the meditation, she says intention again. So I simply imaged these three words each time. And now CP is going to show you this film and you'll see exactly what happened. I'm very excited by this result.
Intention, 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 intention. Intention, intention, intention. Intention, intention, intention.
It was a bit slow. I think it's probably just data transfer. What would probably be useful would be to show the still image. Yeah, there you go. Now you see it. So on the left there, you see how it's very incoherent, actually. This is Lynn's actual speech before she begins the intention experiment. And then in the center, this is where she's speaking somewhere in the middle of the meditation. She says a few words, and one of them was the word intention. And then on the right at the very end of the meditation, she says intention again. And the CymaScope does not lie. It's basically a very simple apparatus. You're simply imprinting sound onto the surface and subsurface of water. So what we're seeing here is that the difference in Lynn's voice is significant. The energy in Lynn's voice changes with over the course of these few minutes, these 10 minutes. So we start with a very incoherent looking image on the left, and then we gradually get across to the right and we see this really gorgeous image on the right, which is simply Lynn's voice having changed its character over the period of those 10 minutes. So obviously we have to ask, how does this happen? And this is new science. The CymaScope instrument has been used for many different aspects of science, but never to measure consciousness. But of course, when we realize that consciousness is a function of life, as far as we know in science, you can't have consciousness without a living entity, a living being. And then when we realize that all life, at least that we know of on this earth, is based on water. So then we see a correlation, direct correlation between consciousness and water. And of course, the cymoscope is using pure water. That's all we use in the cymoscope, nothing else. So there is definitely a correlation here between the consciousness, the change in consciousness that occurred in those 10 minutes. And I don't think it's just Lynn that's changed. I think the impact on Lynn is what's causing this difference. All the thousands of people that held that collective conscious intention have actually influenced the voice of Lynn herself. And when you hear those three words very clearly, as you know, as we did, you can't hear them very clearly on this video, but we've heard them here very clearly in the lab. And Lynn's voice really does change significantly. And of course, when the sound changes, so too does the pattern with the cymoscope. And you know, what we have an adage with the cymoscope, which is beauty in equals beauty out. In other words, if you put a beautiful sound into the cymoscope, whether it be music or in this case, speech, if that speech is more coherent, then you will get more beauty. And that's basically what we're seeing here. So I'm very excited by these results because, you know, it's completely new science using the cymoscope to actually map consciousness. And I'm, you know, I'm really looking forward to further experiments of this nature to then use the cymoscope in this way. And that's a kind of quick summary of where we got. And by the way, I didn't only look at the word intention. There you see the word children on the left. And then Lynn speaks the word children again at the middle point of the meditation. And look at the difference. I mean, it is really highly significant. There's so much structure and form. And no doubt if Lynn had said the word children at the end, then we would have seen even more coherence. I have no doubt about that. And then the other word that I looked at was the word experiment. And again, the same result, basically, far more coherence later in the meditation. So it's a really exciting result, and I'm very much looking forward to further research of this kind.
It's amazing, John.
Wow, wow.
We will make many more experiments.
Absolutely. I'm really excited to, you know, to do more experiments of this nature in speech made visible many, many times that have made me wonder. One in particular that I could mention just so that you get an idea of what I'm talking about here. Someone sent me a file of a friend, and when I tried to make their voice visible with the cymoscope, it had something, had a really strange look about it, and it looked like a tooth in the cymoglyph, you know, which is the word we use for a sound image. It looked just like a tooth. And I tweaked the EQ and I tried to remove this tooth thing and it wouldn't go away. Anyway, I sent it back to this guy and who, you know, sent me the sound file. And I said, I'm really sorry. The cymoglyph has something that looks like a tooth in it and I can't get rid of it. And he said, oh, don't worry, the guy's a dentist, right? So here was someone who was a dentist, had made a sound file, given it to his friend, he'd sent it to me and I'd imaged it and it had a tooth in it. I mean, you know, go figure. I have no idea how that can possibly happen, but I've seen this kind of thing happen many times with the cymoscope. And I've often wondered, you know, is it the consciousness of the person somehow coming through in the sound file and they're making visible some aspect of their personality? And so here we are today, you know, looking at Lynn McTaggart's voice with the cymoscope and seeing how it changed through the course of 10 minutes. I think it's really exciting. So thank you so much, Stevie, for having the idea, the inspiration, you know, for me to look at this. I'm really grateful.